Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. This will be my video for The Boys Season 4, Episode 8 finale. There's so many Easter eggs and references, and somehow The Boys seemingly has predicted a lot of stuff that's been happening in real life. Like, literally a lot of things that wind up going down in the episode, the way Homelander's master plan, Sage's master plan go down, are similar to some things that just happened in real life. And they wrote this whole season of television years ago, long before any of this stuff came to pass. So they've been weirdly prescient. It's kind of like the joke that The Simpsons always predict the future, because a lot of jokes on the show, especially in earlier seasons, like the middle seasons, many years ago, have predicted things that have actually come to pass in present day. And as real as things have gotten on the show, there's actually a lot of comic book references and Easter eggs, so we'll break it all down. If you're brand new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the episodes. I know everybody's going to be asking about Jensen Ackles coming back as Soldier Boy during Season 5 because of that end credit scene tag with Homelander pulling him out of his cryo prison. We already have a ton of supernatural actors that are on the show playing characters or who have guest starred in previous seasons. Jared Padalecki is also supposed to come on during Season 5 and play a new character. They haven't said who he's playing, but I'll talk about that at the end of the video. But they are doing all the things, like Supernatural is slowly taking over The Boys TV show. We will see if he winds up getting any scenes with Jensen Ackles' Soldier Boy. The actual episode title was Assassination Run, a reference to issue 62 of the comics, which was essentially the beginning of the end of the Boys comic book, like the last major story arc, because this is like the lead up to the last big season of the Boys. Season 5 will be the final season. And a lot of things that happen in that comic book issue are things that they set up in this episode, but the way the showrunner explained it, he's not going to end the show the way that they ended the comic book. So if you have not read the end of the comic book, you don't need to worry about spoilers or anything like that from people that have read the comic book. It's going to be completely different, but I think there were a couple moments in this episode where they foreshadow some big twists, particularly with Ryan versus Homelander. But essentially in that final comic book arc that they borrowed the title from for this episode is Homelander enacting the plan to take over the government, basically telling all superheroes that it's time to take over. Time to make America super again.
And most of all, we will make America super again.
Speaking of that slogan that Firecracker goes out on at the end of the episode, it's meant to be a parody of Trump's Make America Great Again. Talk about real life being stranger than fiction and The Boys getting too real, like getting too prescient, calling the future. In real life, we literally just had a failed assassination attempt on Trump while he was on the campaign trail. There have been a lot of things that The Boys TV show has been parodying from real life, but it's been kind of an arm's length thing with them just referencing real life speeches from different figures in and around the government. Now it's almost like they're beat for beat borrowing plot points from real life. But remember, like I said, they wrote the episode a couple years ago. They had no idea that this was going to happen. Now it's time to ask all the Boys writers on Twitter what the winning lottery numbers are going to be the next couple of months. Couple notable changes with the way the episode actually went down, particularly the intro. They aired a special warning, like a trigger warning, because of all the political violence that went down. I think probably the main reason that Amazon did that, it was probably Amazon and not the Boys writers that wanted to do that, was just because we're in the middle of an election year in the United States and we just had an attempted assassination on Trump, one of the candidates. Like Amazon probably saw what happened the last couple of weeks and they're like, oh crap, we should probably put a warning on this. Seems like it was borrowed from events in real life. We probably won't get The Boys Season 5, like the culmination of this crazy arc of them trying to take over the government till 2026. Hopefully, real life will not mirror that because we'll be getting those events way before we get The Boys Season 5 episodes. The actual opening scene starts with a broadcast of VNN Today, which is like their version of the Today Show in real life, just a standard morning show, but it's full of Vought's propaganda. Within universe is January 6th, the day for the new president, Robert Singer and Victoria Neumann, to be confirmed by Congress. The day that Homelander also plans to have him killed so that she can become president. But as we find out, things go completely off the rails, and it's all part of Sage's master plan. As we thought, like a lot of people suspected this early on. Maybe Sage has some sort of contingency plan because Homelander seemed like he was going off the rails. Turns out Sage knew that he was going to do that this whole time, and her master plan, her real master plan, always accounted for that. She just never told him the actual plan.
Plan's dead.
This is the plan. Just had to keep a few bits to myself.
I think that cleans up a lot of people's complaints with Sage's character because a lot of people were wondering if she was stupid, she didn't know things were going to happen, like how could things seem like they're going off the rails? Did she want things to go this way? Turns out that is the case, yes, she knew this was going to happen and just played along with it. They have a quick joke about Vought canceling A-Train's movie premiere with a tweet from the director Adam Bork, like there's even a chance of it, because they figured out that A-Train was the leak. Vought Studios is meant to be a parody of Marvel Studios. I did a video a couple episodes ago when they revealed their big phases of the different plans. It was meant to be a parody of Marvel's big Comic-Con panels, which they're doing literally next week as of me posting this video. Like there's going to be a big Marvel Comic-Con Hall H panel. It will literally go down just like you saw on The Boys. Like, these are all our plans. This is what's coming during the rest of the Marvel movies.
We just realized we'd make more from the write-off.
Ashley's whole comment about earning more money from the tax write-off on the movie by canceling it is a joke about the Batgirl movie at Warner Brothers. The joke there is that they shot an entire movie, finished editing it, it was ready to release, it was like $80 or $90 million, and they claimed that they would earn more money by not releasing it and just basically scuttling it. If anybody has that movie on their hard drive, just feel free to release that out to the wild so we can actually see it. Vought does an All Lives Matter commercial with all the superheroes. It's meant to be a parody of Black Lives Matter. Within Universe, they also had the Soup Lives Matter jokes in previous seasons. I think they did that earlier this season as well, too, which is also meant to be a parody of Black Lives Matter. It's one of the many examples of Vought trying to show how inclusive it is while also being super racist at the same time. Frenchie starts to finish the Compound V virus. Mother's Milk has Huey trying to hack the FBSA database, the superhero governmental agency he worked at with Victoria Neumann. Shifter Annie, as they're calling her, Shapeshifter Annie, tries to distract him from completing his mission so that she can also get rid of the rest of his files, convincing him to get married and also explaining a little bit more about how her powers work. There were a lot of theories early on after she got the code to the safe, people thinking that there was a memory component to the way her powers worked. Like the minute that she absorbed someone's DNA, she also got their memories, which they confirm later in this episode. They get it on again. Poor Huey. He's been abused so much of this series between Tech Knight, Ashley, everything that's going on with Shifter Annie. Apparently, it went on for a while, too. She was gone for 10 days, she says, and they got it on over 20 times with a whole lot of butt stuff. There's a lot of butt stuff jokes during the episode. She says 2 fingers trying to level up, and keep in mind she makes a pegging joke later, meaning that he was the one on the receiving end of all that butt stuff. Part of the joke of Huey's character is that he just gets so put upon, like so many bad things happen to him every single season. There's also a really cool moment that they show you that this is Shifter Annie without telling you by dropping the music when she drops the facade after he walks away. Then when he walks back in, she picks the facade back up and the music picks back up. Just a clever way of reminding you who she is. Then we also find out that there's a time-based component to her power, like the skin that she has starts to shed a little bit. She has to go recharge essentially by touching the original Annie. Then Butcher's sentient tumor tells him the truth about what happened with Ezekiel, that it was him, basically Venom-based powers, which we see later in the episode, and makes a deal with him, basically says that he'll help him if he agrees with the tumor's plan to kill all superheroes. Here's the thing, if you were confused why Butcher's sentient tumor was so angry and wanted to kill all superheroes, it's because it's sort of like the amalgamation of all Butcher's negative emotions. It's cancer that grew from Butcher's brain, so it has all of his negative emotions and memories and thoughts. So it's kind of like all the worst parts of Butcher given physical form in Venom powers. Mallory then comes to visit, sort of setting up their plot later in the episode, revealing that she's the one that's paying all Butcher's medical bills, and the medical facility he's in is sort of like a CIA bunker. She's been helping him in exchange for his work to save Ryan from Homelander. She only really cares about Ryan. She's just helping Butcher to that end. Speak of the devil, then, we see Homelander opening his special trophy case again with all the precious things from people that he's either killed or been obsessed with or done both to. The original Black Noir's sword, Stormfront's picture from World War II Germany, the milk bottle from Madeline Stillwell. There's a lot of milk stuff later in the episode, too. We'll get to that. Can't have the season finale without a whole bunch of milk jokes. In his jar of gray hairs that he's been pulling out from all over his body, his pubes, his hair on his head, like all over the place. The reason why this has been such a big storyline for him, like the way they're actually focusing on this, yes, it's very funny, but it's also meant to be a reminder to him that he's not as invincible as he thinks he is. Like, he can't fight entropy. He is getting older. Even though all the Compound V in his veins extends his life a lot, like he'll live for a long time, theoretically, even if nobody were able to kill him, he would still eventually die of old age. On the boys, their powers work a little bit differently than the powers on Invincible with the Viltrumites. So for instance, Viltrumites just get more powerful the older they get, like they just keep going on and on and on. Theoretically, if nobody else killed them, they would just live forever functionally till like the heat death of the universe. The show's never really got this deep into the weeds, but because Homelander's going gray now, like the rate that he's aging, I would guess that he lived for at least a couple hundred years, maybe a little bit longer than that, but like not beyond 1,000 years. Then he finds Butcher's old picture of him and Becca from before they met him and turned into the Butcher that you know from the series, which drives him mad, throws a huge tantrum, destroying his apartment, which I'm sure he's done many times in the past. You have to imagine he throws tantrums so often, like if he grew up there for so many years, he's probably destroyed that place a bunch of times. Then when Ryan walks in, this whole imagery is just so loaded here, so many metaphors. Homelander standing next to the burning flag. Basically, the entire plot of the episode is about that. The final season, season 5, destroying democracy, essentially turning America into a dictatorship, becoming God Emperor Homelander. And the way they frame the shot of him versus Ryan, pitting them as if they're going to fight each other, like Ryan versus Homelander, Superboy versus Superman is part of the endgame for the show. Even though I don't think it'll actually end that way, like it will be Ryan versus Homelander, but not the type of fight that people think that it will be. But it's basically the show calling its shot for the end of season 5, like the finale for the actual series itself eventually. He tries to give Ryan an order like the way he orders around all other superheroes in the Seven. Pissing him off, he bolts. We find out the shapeshifter has been keeping Starlight alive on Lunchables and bottled water. Notice that they're made by Vought with Black Noir on the covers because Vought makes most of the products that you see in and around the universe of the boys. There's also a joke about that too, the fact that they cause kidney stones. Pretty much all Vaught's products are like this. Like you see little disclaimers on the fake ads they release. It's really, really funny. Basically, all the things that Vought makes will kill you in some different type of way. They don't care. They just care about earning money. Then there's this whole tirade between Shifter Starlight and the real Starlight about how she thinks that everybody does all these terrible things and will bend over backwards, do these mental gymnastics to justify what they do, thinking that they're the heroes of their own stories, which is basically true for everybody on the show. Not just Homelander or the more overtly evil characters, but everybody, like all the boys, Butcher's character, even all the regular people without superhero powers. We get a little of her backstory too. She reveals the first time she used her power, she shifted into her preschool teacher. That's because the vast majority of superheroes get dosed with Compound V when they're very, very young children. So essentially she would have been given the Compound V around that time, which is why her power just manifested when she was in preschool. But a lot of her speech is meant to parallel for the plot of the episode with Homelander's master plan taking over the government and all the people that are in league with Homelander justifying their actions. She references all the terrible things that Starlight did when she was younger against Firecracker on the pageant circuit. She references the events of season 1 when she sucked off the deep, sort of setting off this whole Starlighter movement thing that's been going on through present day. This is also meant to explain Starlight's messed up powers. She's got a very Tobey Maguire Spider-Man 2 kind of problem where she can't access her powers, but it's more of a mental block. She's got herself a bit of a web block. R.I.P. Webweaver, again. She reveals Homelander and Sage's original plan to frame Starlight for being the one to assassinate Robert Singer. The Shifter will do it while looking like her, then they'll swap the real Starlight back in. She'll go to a prison that's strong enough to hold her, and that'll be that. Part of the idea is that it's also meant to further incite more rioting, more chaos in the United States, giving Homelander the opportunity to swoop in and act like a savior, and they use that chaos to install their dictatorship over the government, claiming that it's what they need to do to save everyone. And even though things kind of wind up going down that way, it's according to Sage's plan, but Homelander didn't realize what the real plan actually was. So things come together, but it seems like he almost Kramers himself into a win. Like it seems like he wins on accident, even though it was all according to Sage's plan. Some of you might have realized this too. The initial plan that they have is kind of like Emperor Palpatine's plan during the Star Wars prequels, taking over the Senate, making it a dictatorship, forming the Empire, claiming that he's doing it to make the galaxy more quote-unquote secure after blaming the Jedi for trying to kill him and using the Clone Wars to claim that they need to grant him more power so that he can do a better job of making the galaxy safe, when really it was all just about getting more power. Homelander and Sage, probably Star Wars fans. I think Star Wars was meant to be canon to the boys, so they've probably seen the prequels. Have I ever told you the tragedy of Darth Sage the Wise? Huey and Butcher have that funny conversation about the topless steakhouse restaurant that he saw in Nevada that he spoke to Lenny about that they were going to visit before Lenny died. When he thinks he's going to die before he gets a chance to visit that restaurant, he asks Huey to do it for him and for Lenny. Maybe by the end of season 5, I think that Huey will survive. Huey and Starlight will probably be okay. Early theory. Maybe at the end of the final episode, when they show the tag scenes to show what happens to everyone after the actual ending, maybe they'll pay that off by having him go to that topless steakhouse in the final episode. During the Vought broadcast, Firecracker mentions a character named Negan. I think that's meant to be a Jeffrey Dean Morgan Negan joke from The Walking Dead. There are a lot of people making Negan jokes when he showed up during episode 1. Notice Homelander's look of disgust at her when she starts coughing near him. This becomes a thing later in the episode too. He only cares about the milk, not about her. But remember, the medication she was using was also hurting her body, like slowly killing her, it seemed like. We also get inside Homelander's head, like they take his perspective, showing him just kind of zoning out, going a little bit crazy, waiting for people to prompt him before he sort of comes to consciousness again. Like, oh, and by the way, he just kind of checks back in, like his mind checks back in. He winds up snapping a little, stopping Victoria Neumann from doing her typical politician rhetoric to the public, lying about what's going on with the new administration. The lie that she was in the middle of telling them was why they needed to create that special position for a superhero in the government. He basically just flat out outs her as a superhero on national television, though. If it wasn't clear what he was doing here, lasering her, he lasered her to show that she healed the damage instantly. In the photo replay, was able to get a picture of her eyes glazing over using her powers. Firecracker then uses the opportunity to go on one of her crazy rants again, yelling about the things that she usually yells about. Love Butcher's reaction too. He seems really pleased by this. And the way Homelander just completely brushes this off like it's no big deal, like he's just boom, on to the next thing. Everything he tells to Victoria Neumann, I think we assumed after the last couple of episodes, essentially he's not worried about any kind of future elections or any problems because they plan to turn America into a dictatorship and get rid of the Constitution. That's what the whole martial law twist at the end of the episode is for. Like I said, it's a little bit like Revenge of the Sith, where throughout the movie, Palpatine just continues passing new laws, granting him more and more power as things go along, until there essentially is no law but what he says. And even though this is meant to be like a horrifying twist, oh my god, he's going to get rid of actual democracy, he's actually going to take over the United States and become a god emperor, they end with a funny moment of her calling him on the actual day-to-day of accomplishing that goal.
Wait, you think I didn't think of that? Of course I thought of that.
You're going to have to deal with like half of the country who's not going to agree with you. What are you going to do about them? And Homelander's like, oh, I have definitely thought about that, when he clearly has not thought about that. He gets Ashley to make a blacklist of anyone at Vought that he needs to kill now who could potentially have information that could hurt him. We also find out that Ashley's new assistant is also named Ashley, which feels like something that she would do so that she can vent being yelled at by yelling at someone who is also named Ashley. Huey finds that they've lost all the files on Victoria Neumann on his hard drive because that was why Shifter Annie infiltrated his apartment. Mother's Milk activates their contingency plan was essentially to move Robert Singer to that special bunker. He winds up calling for a totally new election, tells everyone that if he dies, it'll be because they had him assassinated, calling out Homelander's plan, driving the country further into chaos. But remember, this is all going according to Sage's true master plan, even though Homelander didn't know what the actual plan was. Ryan comes to visit Butcher, and throughout the episode, they slowly start to clue him in on what's really going on, the actual state of things. But early on, Butcher actually tries to be the sensible one, sort of easing him into the really crazy stuff. That's why I say the wild thing here is that, like, in this whole storyline here with Butcher, Mallory, and Ryan, Butcher winds up being the most sensible person of him and Mallory. There's a real quick montage of the deep hallucinating Ambrosius, R.I.P. He's probably going to be haunted by her death throughout Season 5. Notice in the background, Firecracker pouring Homelander breast milk, and she has the special container there too, like he's not trying to hide the kink anymore. Ashley gives him the list of people at the company he's going to kill, which he then gives to the Deep and the new Black Noir, putting Ashley at the top of the list. The funny moment there, too, is that none of them ever bothered to ever learn Ashley's last name. That's how little they cared about her. And they have all the jokes about Homelander then turning on Firecracker. How ironic that the thing that she did to try and get close to Homelander is going to wind up killing her and pushing her further away from Homelander. All because he is disgusted at the idea of her being sick. Like, get away from me, move down the chairs. Nope, next one, keep going way down to the end of the table. I am sure there's going to be some kind of rematch between her and Starlight during Season 5, but the way she's going, like, she seems like she gets sicker and sicker and sicker throughout the finale, so she might just wind up being killed by the degenerative condition that's being caused by all the medication that she's taking. That would actually be a more interesting way to actually kill her if she winds up killing herself inadvertently. They also wind up giving the Deep and the new Black Noir the rest of the actual plan. They're going to take every superhero possible and surround the White House in a show of force, just in case things go off the rails, but also to send a message to everyone of their new regime. This is actually based a lot on the ending of The Boys comic book, where he basically does a similar thing, getting all the different superheroes to bandy together and take over the government. Ashley then panics, thinking that she's about to die, taking some of Homelander's stash of the permanent compound V, which causes her brain to start growing in her head. It looks like what's happening here, like her brain is shifting around inside her head. She's already lost her hair, though, if it wasn't clear. She's been wearing that wig for a long time. So now the question is going to be, what are Ashley's new powers going to be? Because if she was going to die, I think they would have just had her explode on the spot there. And because she didn't, I think that means that she will get some kind of compound V powers. But because Ashley is such a darkly comedic character, like you're meant to clown on her so much, whatever power she does wind up getting will probably be some twist on that. Then we get more of Mother's Milk with Singer, the Secret Service, the Shifter Starlight down in the secret bunker. We also find out later in the episode that Sage, knowing that this would all happen like she was enacting her true master plan, had another secret plant inside Robert Singer's cabinet down there. That is how the news got that clip of Robert Singer in the bunker talking about wanting to kill Victoria Neumann, because Sage had another secret plant in there. Huey winds up realizing that it's the Shifter in front of him when she says the same thing that she told them earlier on the series about it being too hot. Real Starlight then winds up ripping through her own skin to get out of the bindings. Don't worry though, she'll heal the damage. Remember, same thing happens to Kimiko later. Breaks her neck, heals it pretty quickly. If it wasn't clear though, she does feel the pain. It's kind of like a Wolverine situation where he has the healing factor, but he still feels all the same pain that anybody else would anytime he gets hit. Then we get a big fight scene with the Shifter Starlight ripping through all the Secret Service agents, RIP to all those people. Notice her ability running along the walls. It's meant to be a reference to Mystique's fighting style during the X-Men movies because she's kind of like Mystique, similar types of powers. The only difference with Mystique is that she doesn't have a memory-based component to her power. They wind up getting saved by the real Starlight, who then takes her on, but because her powers aren't working yet, just has a full-on knockdown, drag-out fight. It winds up being a great takedown, and even though Shifter Starlight seems like she might be dead, it's always possible that she's still alive, but the way her powers work, even if she did die, she wouldn't turn back into regular form. You'd have to rip off Starlight's skin from her body. That's how her powers work. So my guess is that if she is dead, eventually Starlight's skin will just degenerate around her, like that's what happens if enough time goes by. The other skin of the person that she copied just fades away eventually. Then you'd actually see what the person looks like in their original form. Then we get the whole scene of Victoria Neumann and Homelander yelling at each other, with her basically deciding to turn on him once he tells her that he's going to basically torture her daughter Zoe for the rest of her life and send her pieces to her in the mail every single year until she dies as well. Like, it is time to check out of this hotel. Frenchie then completes the Compound V virus, and Starlight and Huey have it out because she's pissed Huey didn't realize it was at her faster because it was about 10 days. Also a little pissed that he got it on with the Shifter so many different times. A lot of people also probably called this after the Homelander fight. Victoria Neumann calls Huey asking for the boys' help, and it seems like she is genuine, like she really does want out of the whole Homelander thing.
And that's how you know you can trust me, because I am trusting my daughter with you.
But because she does seem like she turns the corner and tries to redeem herself, essentially that dooms her in the story. Like the minute that a character in The Boys tries to do something good or be a good person, usually they wind up getting killed. We get that funny messed up scene of the Seven killing everyone on the list. Firecracker looking like she's getting worse by the minute now. The irony here is that she's being killed by the milkers themselves. We get a bunch more bro jokes from the Deep in the new Black Noir, who then congratulates him on getting the murder boner, just like the original Black Noir, fulfilling his desire to get into character, which he'd been trying to do for like the first half of the series. This is his whole dream as an actor, was to get perfectly into character. Huey gives a very ironic speech about how the boys shouldn't kill people anymore and solve their problems peacefully, to set up the twist with Butcher later when he kills Victoria Neumann with his Venom powers. But his whole line about winning against monsters by acting more human might actually be the way they pay off the Ryan versus Homelander fight in Season 5 for like the very end of the show. Like the big final battle of Ryan defeating Homelander isn't an actual physical fight like people would normally expect, but them talking to each other father to son. I just think because so much of the finale is setting up Season 5, that's what they're trying to set up with Ryan and Homelander. It'll be more of a father-son type of chat where they'll talk it out as opposed to battling each other to the actual death. Starlight forgives Huey for doing all the butt stuff with the Shifter and says he's getting tested for every STD known to man. That Shifter really seemed like they got around, so who knows what's going on there. This is actually a pretty big moment. Kimiko and Frenchie kiss, finally becoming an actual couple. I think so many people, myself included, assumed that they were a couple a long time before this in earlier seasons. But apparently, according to the showrunner, that was not the case. This is also more of her redemption arc and slowly becoming more humanized again, metaphorically getting past her trauma, her PTSD, eventually speaking by the end of the episode out loud. Back at the CIA bunker, Ryan then uses his super hearing to listen to Butcher and Mallory talking about what's really happening with the failed attempt on Singer, the Compound V weapon they plan to use, and their plans for Ryan, prompting them to start telling him the truth about Homelander, about all the craziest, most messed up WTF things that he's done, including assaulting Becca, his mother, leading to his birth. No big surprise that he is definitely not ready to get all this truth. Like, it is just too real for him. He cannot handle it. Maybe by the end of the final season, he'll start to realize that they were trying to tell him the truth. Like, he'll start to actually understand what it means. But part of the idea here is that their backup plan is to essentially use him as an actual physical weapon against Homelander. Like, they want to train him to physically kill his father, which of course he does not want to do. Even if he were to agree with them, part of the problem is that he's still a little kid. Like, it would take him years to physically mature to fully come into his powers. But essentially, it'd be like watching a couple Kryptonians go at each other like the Man of Steel movie with Zod versus Superman. In this case, though, they've been using Ryan as more of a Superboy type of character, so you say Superboy versus Superman. But like I said, I think the actual answer to this problem, like Ryan not wanting to actually kill his father, is Huey's speech from earlier talking about taking more human tactics of trying to appeal to Homelander as his father. Like, as his son, he will try to get his father to help. Then things predictably go completely off the rails when Mallory will not let him leave. Like, no kid, we can't do this. You're our only shot at actually stopping Homelander. You can kind of feel the way this is headed too. He gets freaked out and accidentally pushes her into the wall, killing her, R.I.P. But remember, one of their big fears had been Ryan turning into another Homelander, like just like his father, or becoming something even worse, killing one Homelander to replace him with another Homelander. So when Ryan has that look on his face, seeing Mallory's dead body, it seems kind of like the face that he made at the end of season 3, like he's almost drinking the Kool-Aid a little, like he doesn't care about her as much, or he starts to think about her as lesser, the way that Homelander was trying to get him to think of other regular people as lesser beings at the beginning of the series. So it's this act that causes Butcher to give in to the sentient tumor's demands, using the Compound V weapon to kill all superheroes, which also now includes Ryan, kind of thinking that he might be a lost cause. Love this funny moment they have between Kimiko and Zoe, like a little standoff, because they still have beef after the events of episode 1. To her credit, Victoria Neumann seems like she's being honest when she says that she'll work with the boys and help them in the future to get rid of Homelander and fix everything. But when Butcher comes back, notice how healthy he looks. That's because this isn't really Butcher talking when he says no deals and reacts to the mention of Lenny. Part of Butcher's deal is that he essentially gave his sentient tumor control of his body, so it's the tumor here doing all this speaking, and Butcher's just along for the ride deep down inside his own mind. It's kind of a Moon Knight situation crossed with Venom. We are Butcher, then tears Victoria Neumann in half, R.I.P. Notice that her Secret Service agent escapes, probably going to tell Singer's men, everybody else in the government, what happened, and the news. Tumor Butcher then takes the Compound V weapon, planning to use it on Homelander and all the other superheroes. Ultimately, it will be all superheroes, but really the goal is Homelander. Then back in Homelander's apartment, he's watching the news broadcast about Victoria Neumann's death and Robert Singer being arrested. Sage walks in, celebrating the culmination of this phase of the plan with a balloon for Ryan, because Homelander claimed to her at the beginning of the series that this was the whole reason for the actual plan. He was doing this for Ryan. Then I talked about this earlier, but the whole idea is that she knew everything that was going to happen the whole time. She had this whole contingency plan, the real plan, as she calls it, knowing that Homelander was going to pull a Homelander and try to throw things completely off the rails. So she's still always been the smartest person alive. She just never told Homelander what the real actual plan was. She reveals that she orchestrated the events of Victoria Neumann's death, pinning it on Robert Singer, getting him arrested. So now the actual Speaker of the House, who was on Team Homelander, is the next in line to become president, which is what Sage wanted, who then swears his allegiance to Homelander, making him essentially Emperor of the United States. Notice how Homelander's also crying like a baby here because he thinks that everything has gone to crap, but he's essentially Kramered himself into a win, winning on accident. It's meant to be a twist on the end of season 3 when he realized that he could do anything he wanted, but he was kind of curious, like, how far can I take this? But at the end of season 4, he starts to realize that even though he thinks that he's doing everything that he wants to do, it's really what Sage wants him to do, and she's just using him playing everybody like a 4-dimensional game of chess. If there was any confusion about why Sage continued to uphold the plan despite Homelander trying to betray her, it's because of what she said earlier during the previous episode. She felt so disgusted with humanity that she no longer cared about it anymore and whether or not it actually survived. That is why she seems like she's so unhinged here, so happy at the successful completion of this phase 1 of her plan. Like she gets a hard-on from this. She also yoinks back her journal that she left there on purpose. She leaves telling him to buckle up for phase 2 of the plan. You could also think of that as a Marvel reference too, like phase 2, phase 3, Marvel phase 4.
Buckle up for phase 2.
Phase 2 of Sage's plan is essentially what you see at the end of the episode as it begins, the actual act of them taking over America, declaring martial law, and then rounding up all the people that they want to get rid of and putting them in those special prisons of Teknites. Basically the actual act of them turning America into a dictatorship. Throughout the end of the episode, they have a montage to all the different characters to show what happens to them. Heading into Season 5, they play Nirvana's Heart-Shaped Box, great song to go out on. The reason why it's important that this new president declares martial law is because it gives the military, the cops, superheroes carte blanche to do anything that they want. Notice how Homelander also cuts him off in the middle of his speech and just takes the podium from him because the president is meant to be a puppet to Homelander, like that's why he swore his allegiance to Homelander earlier. Now it's Homelander, essentially the one in charge of the United States, the Emperor of the United States. Mother's Milk gives everybody fake passports to help them escape the country in separate directions. Behind the scenes episode notes state that the fake names on the passports, even though they don't show them on screen, are based on real-life rock stars, like the boys are named after Led Zeppelin characters and the girls after a couple other girl rock stars. Mother's Milk is John Bonham, Huey is Jimmy Page, Frenchie is Robert Plant, like I said, Led Zeppelin essentially, Starlights is Debbie Harry, and Kimiko is Joan Jett. Homelander starts calling out all the Starlighters, basically declaring open season on them. They start rounding everybody up. They do it mostly with the boys' characters, but this is also happening with a lot of other regular people too. Basically them going after everybody that does not support Homelander. Frenchie and Kimiko try to hop a shipping vessel. The actual name of the ship is based on Huey's hometown in the comics. We get another broadcast from Firecracker celebrating recent events. She starts shouting a bunch of stuff, the normal stuff she shouts about. When she says "Make America Super Again," that's another reference to "Make America Great Again," which I already talked about earlier in the video. The boys mirroring a lot of stuff that's happening in real life, weirdly. Zoe, ironically, winds up being sent to Red River Institute, the place where her mother grew up, the whole place she tried to escape from. Basically, all the terrible things that Victoria Neumann ever did her entire life were to ultimately get as far away from that life as possible, and now her daughter's wound up in that life trapped, just like she was. My early theory about Zoe is that because Stan Edgar is still out there alive somewhere and he cared about Victoria Neumann, he will try to rescue Zoe and Zoe will just live with him after the end of the series is done. Then Homelander's superheroes start pulling hits on all the boys all across the United States. This is meant to be the return of Sam and Kate from the Gen V show. They showed up earlier this season. This basically answers what Homelander's mission for them was going to be. It seems like they get Frenchie to turn himself over using Kate's power. Frenchie winding up back in prison, ironically. This causes Kimiko to cry out loud, completing her character arc like she hadn't spoken out loud since she was a little girl. Mother's Milk winds up being taken down in another ironic manner by Love Sausage, who did the same thing during Season 2, taking him down with the giant junk powers. Notice all the troops here in black have Vought logos. They're basically like Vought branded stormtroopers now. Then super deep cut, they reveal they brought back Cindy from Season 2. Remember, there were so many questions about this after she just walked off into the distance and they never explained what happened to her character. Like, are they going to bring her back? She's super powerful. Well, they definitely brought her back. Starlight winds up escaping, so she and Butcher right now are like the boys' characters that are still on the loose and will probably try to help break everybody else out that gets thrown in prison. And we see Butcher driving into the distance with the Compound V weapon and the tumor, seemingly on his way to activate it. Then we get that big end credit scene tag with Homelander finding out that Soldier Boy is in that cryo prison and releasing him. Now, the way they play this is the new president that informed him that Soldier Boy was here, like he's just learning about it now. But remember, Sage knows everything that's going to happen, so Homelander releasing Soldier Boy is probably something that Sage wanted to happen. But essentially, Jensen Ackles coming back as Soldier Boy during Season 5. Papa bless. Like I said earlier, the funny thing about this is that Jared Padalecki is supposed to guest star during Season 5. No idea what character he's playing, but I'm sure there'll be all kinds of supernatural references when they start teasing it again. There's also an interesting line from the president when he tells Homelander he was his first call, hand to God. That's also meant to be a joke about Homelander becoming God Emperor, essentially. Next big follow-up question, when are we actually going to get Season 5 episodes, is probably going to be 2026 based on when they're actually going to start filming the episodes. What I think is happening right now is that we'll get Gen V Season 2 episodes next year, and there'll be like a crossover with The Boys Season 5 episodes, the same way that they crossed over with The Boys Season 4 during Gen V Season 1. And even though Season 5 is the last season of The Boys' main series, there'll be a bunch more sequels. I'm sure there'll be some prequels eventually. Like, people said they wanted a young Homelander show. We'll see. I'm sure they'll do a bunch more spin-offs of The Boys. But there's so much going on during the episode. If there's any other Easter eggs or references that you spotted in the episode that I didn't talk about in the video, write them below in the comments, and I'll try to do more bonus videos as we get more teasers for Season 5. There's a bunch of big stuff coming up this week. We have Deadpool and Wolverine coming out. I'll be doing a bunch of videos for that. Easter eggs, post-credit scenes, all kinds of stuff. And we have Comic-Con coming as well too. So be sure to enable alerts for my channel so you don't miss anything. Everybody click here for my House of the Dragon Season 2 Episode 6 video, and click here for all my other Boys episodes. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.